My name is Alexandrae Lamonth, but just to save your breath and energy, you can just call me Alex, all right? That's completely fine. So, I was given the task to present to you guys about digital evangelism,
Amen.
right? Now, before we go into the meat of the matter, we first have to understand what is digital evangelism, right? So, digital evangelism is a form of outreach that leverages digital tools and platforms to connect with people, to share the gospel message, and to engage in meaningful conversations about faith. And this includes things like social media, websites, emails, video conferences, and any other online tools you can possibly think about, right? Now, again, let us just pause here to see where we are now, and so we'll have an idea of where we need to go or how much more work we need to put in when it comes on to evangelism. So, here are some statistics, and this is up to 2021, right? So, in 2021, we had 332.9 million people living in the United States. Out of the 332.9 million, 90% reported to have access to the internet. Apart in that 90%, 69%, however, say they have access to social media. Now, here's where things kind of get a little complicated for me. Even though we have 332.9 million people in America, we have 406 million mobile subscriptions, which means that there are a few people who uses T-Mobile and Verizon. They have multiple, right? And out of all this number, 66.9% of Americans who reported said that they are active social media users. This is the amount of people who are Seventh day Adventists in North America, and this includes Canada, right? So 1.2 million Adventists is in North America. If which what I did was I took that 1.2 in its entirety because I couldn't find specific for the United States, and I compared it to our population in 2021, and you can see that that's just 0.36%, right? Let's go. We're now in the state of Massachusetts. We have a population in 2021 of 6.9 million, which amounts to about 2% of the United States population in 2021. Out of the 6.9 million people in Massachusetts, 26,000 reported to be a Seventh Day Adventist. That's just 0.37% of Massachusetts population. So even though we've come a long way, this tells us that we have some more work to do, right? And here is the mind-boggling stat that got me, kind of iffy a little bit when I saw it. In 2021, 109.8 million Americans said that they search for online content. Well, it didn't say whether it was a monthly basis or a weekly basis. It just gave me this. So now we see that there are people who are searching for things that we can provide, right? And so I would like to remind you of a verse. Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Now, I could stop right here and then we could, you know, just say, okay, everybody, just make sure everybody has a social media account or whatnot. But all honesty, we need to understand that from a personal standpoint, because I'm sure all of us, or almost all of us in this room, have some form of social media account. What we do on it does impact the ministry. That's why we have a ministry called personal ministry, right? And what we do, even as a collective body, does impact how people perceive us. And, it does impact how people might want to reach out, um, to say, hey, I want to know more about the truth that we have, right? So here are 7 mistakes that we generally make when it comes on to digital evangelism. And here is the first one. Do you use social media just to post announcements and invitations? Don't answer me, just answer it in your mind. If this is what you do, or if your church, your organization, if this is the only thing you do when it comes on to social media, then you are taking the social out of social media, right? I would recommend to follow the 80-20 rule. 80% social interaction, 20% announcements and invitation, right? 80% of social interaction, meaning the post you post, 80% of the post you post should be about engaging your followers online. Ask them questions, you know, post some inspirational quotes, something. Preach the sermon. The biggest thing for that I see is a lot of churches, well, not really a lot of churches, but the churches that I look at, they have prayer time when they go online and they just pray for people. They take the prayer requests and they just pray. They talk with the people. There's a church, well, my home church in Jamaica, there every other Friday they just go online and they just sing. Just sing. Now they take hymns, the people type what hymn they want and they sing it. Interaction, engagement, and 20% announcements. And what you find is that the more engaged, the more you keep your followers engaged, it easier it is to get the support you need for events because you're doing more engagement than promoting, right? The next mistake I generally see, and this mostly happens on personal accounts, is the airing of dirty laundry. Facebook, nobody on Facebook needs to know that, the divorce was bad or you're not having a good time with your partner or something. We don't need to know all of that, right? And people look at that, especially if they know that you're a Christian and then you're online and you're not doing things or you're doing things online that they probably perceive that a Christian should not be doing, right? Social media is not the place to engage in social sparring, right? Avoid arguing with individuals who disagree with your social, political, or theological views, right? The next thing, and goes back to a more general sense, is using cliche imagery. Do not rely on overused inspirational stereotypes. Do not use imagery that appears to be staged or depicts an artificial sense of happiness, right? You want to make sure that if you're posting anything and it has to do with videos or pictures, that it's a real thing, right? And may I say that we have some very great graphic designers, graphic artists in the world that could take a group shot of all of us with all these faces and make it look like we're having a catawampus time. But that might not be the case, right? So try your best. It's kind of hard, especially if you're taking images of Google or wherever. It's kind of hard to discern if it's a real photo or not, but try to find them as real as possible. Because the realer it is, the more people can connect with it, right? Do not write a novel. You're not writing a book when it comes on to social media. Avoid writing posts longer than 80 characters for Facebook, and if you're on Twitter, 280 characters. And the characters does include when you hit that space bar. It does count, right? If you're writing on a post on Facebook, do not write a post that is more than 80 characters. If you're doing it on Twitter, no more than 280 characters. And I was saying that the space bar, every time you press that space button, it counts as a character, right? So that's something to bear in mind. Keep your post concise and bit sized. So the smaller it is, generally it's the better. And let me just do a live demonstration. The average user does this all the time. All they do is scroll. So if you put a long post there, maybe a paragraph or two that's like way long, and even for me, and I see it, and the first thing I check is to see how long it is. And if it's too long, I probably read the first sentence and then I'm gone. And he's shaking his head, so he probably does the same thing, right? So keep it as small as possible. Nothing is wrong with giving a summary. And if you're using videos, make sure that they're either 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or 60 seconds in length.
Does that include YouTube, or is this just for?
No, YouTube is different. This is just for like general posting on, yeah. One thing I say, if the video is too long to go on an Instagram reel, it can be condensed, right? Here's another one, spamming. Do not hijack your followers' news feeds, right? Utilize social media management tools such as Hootsuite, Sprout Social to assist in scheduling posts. That way, you come off as consistent and you get, things are done in a more orderly fashion. Hootsuite, and so there are social media management tools. So for Hootsuite, because I use that when I do stuff for certain clients, is that you connect your Facebook, you connect your Instagram, you connect your Twitter, you connect everything into this one management tool. And so when we create the content and we schedule it at a particular time, depending on the schedule, it sends it automatically to wherever we want it to go. And all we need to do is to just do the follow-up, right? So we do the follow-up, which will be to check the comments, check the messages, things like that. So that's the purpose of Hootsuite or Social Sprout. All right, so this is a good idea. I know for Hootsuite and Sprout Social, it's a paid thing. If you just have Facebook and Instagram, Facebook have a similar system called Meta Business Suite, which you could use to your advantage, and it's free. That one is free, but it's just for Facebook and Instagram, right? Now, here's another one, the inconsistency. Do you update your social accounts only when the Spirit moves? And if your answer is yes, then I might say, how often does the Spirit move? Right? We have to be consistent. KFC and Burger King and McDonald's and Starbucks, these guys don't take a break. So why should the people of God take a break? All right? The devil is always working. So why should we take a break? We got to work too. So we have to be consistent. I would say post at least one time per day or every few days for people to connect with your church. If you post this month and then 6 weeks goes by, nobody really remembers that you have an online thing going on, because everything is just so fast-paced in the digital world. So to stay relevant, we got to keep putting things in place. And for a church, that simply means that you might have to look at your communication team and how you guys operate in the digital world and come with ideas that will help you to be up there that will help you to reach more people. And here is a little tip. And this is for like Facebook and Instagram mostly, because those are the two most popular account social media. TikTok is on the rise. But the more you post, especially on a consistent basis, is the more people are going to see you. That is how the algorithm of these social networks are designed. So even if from a personal profile you had, let's say, 500 Facebook friends, and you make a post, hi, the truth is not all 500 will see that post at the same time. But the more you post is the more it's spread to those 500 friends. And it's the same thing with the business pages. You might have 10,000 likes or 10,000 followers, but you post every now and again, it's not going to hit all those people. But the more you post is the more it spreads, which means the more you cover those who follow you, right? So be consistent, right? And here is the thing. Let us not keep the church and social media separate. Church leaders, which I assume quite a number of us here are, including our pastors, should not be absent from social media. Why? Because we are the leaders. We are the front runners of our church, whether local, conference, union, whichever level. We are the front runners. And so you might see Elder Davy preaches a very powerful sermon on a particular Sabbath, and somebody watches and say, I want to know more about Elder Davy. They saw it online. They're not at church to go to Elder Davy. They're going to look for him online. And if what he posts and how he appears online does not look like how he was when he was preaching, that does not send a good message. So we have to be, everything has to be, you get it? Yeah. Social media presence should remind others, here we go, of who we are and point to God's leading in your life in a public way. Just like how if we got baptized, it's a public demonstration. When we get married, it's a public event. Even though we try sometimes to make it as private, but really it's a public event. It's the same thing. Once we're leaders, we're public figures, no matter the level. And so if we're worshiping God, when we're Seventh-day Adventists, what we do in our personal space should also reflect that, because we don't know who is watching, right? But here are some tips for a successful digital ministry. Don't look at the angry emoji. I just couldn't find anything better. Engage with your audience. I spoke about this earlier. Start the conversation. Ask questions or polls. Respond to comments, visitors, posts, retweet, reviews. Try to be as active as possible, right? Get the entire church or community involved. Encourage the church to follow, to like all your church's social media accounts. And if you want them to be a part of your personal thing too, go right ahead, right? But let us try to get them involved. If they're involved, the work becomes easier, right? Ask the church, and I would say educate the members on how to use hashtags and use selected hashtags for events to increase public awareness. Now, I'm going to give you an example of how powerful a hashtag is. Or I should wait till later. Yeah, I'll wait till later till I get there. And mention the social media accounts in your programs. Nothing is wrong with say, like us or follow us on whatever social media account, right? Nothing is wrong with saying that, right? It helps people, it reminds them that, hey, if they haven't done it, I need to do it. And it also depicts that, hey, we're online we're doing our thing online, right? Another reminder, try to keep the post short. Posts with 80 characters or less receive 23% higher interaction than longer posts, right? And always use blurb or sentence whenever posting on social media to support photos, videos, etc. Just a little thing to describe, what that picture or that video is, right? And here we go. Use a hashtag. Now, I just became the communication director for the Shiloh Church, right? And the church just pretty much opened its Instagram account. And so the first thing I started to do was to create every Sabbath at, Friday evening sunset, going into the Sabbath, I would schedule and it will post a happy Sabbath post. And within that post, if you go on the Instagram account, you would see that there's some hashtags listed there. Hashtag Adventist, hashtag SDA, hashtag NAD. And what happened, not this Friday gone, but the other one, was that I got a comment from this Instagram account called SDA Corner, which I knew about from in Jamaica. It's a Jamaican run in social Instagram account that is owned by an Adventist, right? And he does post it. That's his personal ministry thing going on. And he commented, and I checked. He well, I didn't the church using the church account. I didn't follow him, and he did not follow us. But because I used the hashtag, it came up on his news feed, and he read what the post was about, and therefore he commented. That's the power of hashtags. So that's a perfect example of using hashtags, how far the reach of what you post can go, right? And when you're doing hashtags, keep them short and memorable, especially when you're trying to get all your church to do a hashtag when they post something, right? Let's say a evangelism series is coming up, and we're gonna call it rescue. Hashtag rescue. It's short, it's memorable. So when your church members take a selfie at the evangelism thing, they just need to put hashtag rescue, not hashtag so and so and so blah 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 rescue. They're not gonna remember all of that, right? So keep them short and memorable. Here's a little more sort of stats. This shows up to between 2016 and 2022 the mobile traffic by the application category, right? It's reported that 19% does file sharing, 23% web browsing, 33% software download, that includes apps, 34% audio, just listening to audio stuff, 39% social networking, and 50% video. So therefore, this tells us that videos receive the highest engagement within our region. So you see where TikTok and Instagram Reels and those other things come in now? And don't be afraid, let me just say, don't be afraid of TikTok and those things, because I've seen some very good Christian posts on these platforms, right? So now, Alex, you said all of this. My church is too small. We don't have the people or the skill set to come up with all of these things, right? We have brothers and sisters who make content on a daily basis that are theologically sound, that will perhaps give us some great help. These are just two men that I know. One, he's a pastor. He's not serving as a pastor, but he went to theological seminary at one of our institutions. And you see, they're both videos, but they both do two different things. Every day, Pastor Williams goes on many over 20 different social media platforms, and he prays, gives a little thought, prays for people. That's all he does every day. Elder or Pastor L. David Harris, who is the owner and the founder of Your Daily Portion, all he does is get the Sabbath school quarterly ahead of time. He goes in his little studio in his home and he does 10 minutes every day of each day's portion of the Sabbath school lesson religiously. So we have men, and I'm sure there are many more who does this. All we have to do is to make sure that what they're doing aligns with what we believe in, right? I can say that these men does fit that role and engage them. I'm sure that they are more than happy to partner with the church, or if it's just your personal thing to get it going, because for them, they're not being paid to do this. Church is not paying them to do this. They're just doing it because they understand that there's a work to be done, right? And so Shiloh takes on Pastor Williams' thing every day. That's one social media post that less that I have to worry about. And very soon we'll be starting with Elder Harris. And then that's two social media posts that I don't have to worry about because they're always going to be doing it until we tell them we don't want it anymore. Right? So bear that in mind when you're thinking about what to do when you're doing online. Bear that in mind. And here is where Mr. YouTube comes in, live streaming services. Right? There is a limit to how many people can physically fit in the building, but we can reach double, triple, quadruple what we can hold in our buildings through live streaming. Everybody get that? So don't just look at the guy like my friend Alex over there who is behind the camera as, oh, the church is going into the realm of production. No, we're ministering. We're reaching people who, without the gadgets and these tools that we have recently invested in, especially during COVID, we would not have been able to reach. And just give me a second. And we have to see it from that perspective that is just another way of evangelizing. So there's a church that I used to manage their social media account. I think now they're probably still in the 11,000s of followers. Majority of their followers came from some of those countries, collectively came from those countries in which we really don't have a strong presence. Right? All right. So I know I ended a little bit early, so I'm going to give you some live streaming brata, right? That's what we say in Jamaica. So we're giving a little more for a little money. So here are the benefits. So live streaming, it helps us to connect with a larger audience, right? It leads to greater engagement for church members. It helps with live interactions with audiences. Examples would be rap sessions with young people, and we can do polls, right? Now, the best practices is when we choose the right equipment, right? I don't recommend substandard stuff, especially when it comes to the work of God. They never did it back in the day. I don't see why we should do it now, right? Acknowledge the online audience during the welcome and the sermon. So nothing is wrong with saying welcome. You have to welcome everybody in the building and those who are online. And if you are online, like sometimes I might be up there and I have the YouTube chat in front of me, I might call some names that I see coming up in the chat, right? Or people that I know and just, give them that welcome. Even though they're online, they are still a part of the church, right? And we also need to get that and understand that. They might not be physically there, but they're still a part of the church. And if they don't feel like, just like us, if we don't feel like we're a part of something, we're not going to be too interested. When I was in Jamaica, we did evangelistic series. We did one of the biggest ones called Net 2018. This was before the pandemic. And this was also during the time when YouTube was swelling even more, especially in Jamaica. And we did this evangelistic series. Of course, you could come in the building, but we were geared most to online. And just by engaging folks in the chat, we got baptisms, especially during COVID. The first time these people saw the building was when they were going to get baptized. So I'm speaking from seeing it work with my two eyes of being a part of the process. That once they feel like they're a part of something, it's easier to tell them to share the link because they already feel invested in it. It's easier to get them to click that link to make that decision for Bible study or whatever because they feel like they're a part of it. Right? And I'll just want to end with this. Jesus said, "For where two or three are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them." Jesus did not say, "For where two or three are gathered in a building or in a church, well, in under a tree or in a car." He did not say you have to be physically there. It says where they are gathered in my name. There I am in the midst of them. So as we go forward, let us bear that in mind, right? That evangelism is not one dimensional, it's three dimensional. There are many different ways we can do evangelism, and digital evangelism is just one way in which we could reach others for the kingdom of God. Here are my contact information, just in case you want to reach out. Um, Text messages, calls are fine. If you're interested in knowing what I do, career wise, there's a link to the website. The hashtag will give you the same information. And just let me know. I have no problem consulting with churches or whatever the case is regarding anything. God taught me all of this that I'm sharing with you, and I feel I must give back the knowledge that God has blessed me with.